The morning sun had barely risen when the weight of the world fell, again, onto the shoulders of one man who had already carried more than his share. In the pale, washed-out waiting room of St. Marlowe Memorial, a single dad named Rowan Hale stood frozen in place, staring at a number on a bill so crushing it felt like the walls were closing in. His hands shook, his breath hitched, and for a moment, he thought he might collapse before anyone even told him whether his little boy was going to survive. His heart thundered violently, as if begging the universe for one more miracle he no longer believed would come. If you believe in kindness, quiet miracles, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Heartline Tales so stories like this can keep touching lives. Rowan wasn't new to struggle. Life had been chipping away at him for years, carving him down to a man who knew how to fight, but wasn't sure how much longer he could. He raised his 7-year-old son, Micah, alone after losing his wife to a sudden aneurysm 2 years earlier. He worked double shifts at a hardware warehouse, slept little, ate less, and prayed often, though even his prayers had grown thin around the edges. But Micah was the reason he kept breathing. Now, he was the reason Rowan felt his world slipping through his fingers. Micah had been admitted 3 nights earlier after collapsing suddenly in their small, dimly lit apartment while drawing superheroes on the floor. A rare immune condition, the doctors said, aggressive but treatable. Treatable, if Rowan could afford it. Insurance covered only a fraction. The rest was a mountain he saw no way to climb. He had spent the night pacing the sterile hallway, running numbers, ripping up numbers, rewriting numbers, and coming up short every time when the receptionist, Dr. Lena Ward, told him gently, "Your entire first week has been paid." Rowan had stared at her like she had spoken in another language. The papers in his hands trembled under the weight of disbelief. Paid? How? By who? Why? But all she said was, a donor. Anonymous. Rowan walked slowly back to Micah's room, each step heavy with confusion. The hallway was bright with afternoon light streaming through high windows, but it did nothing to warm the knot of fear inside his chest. He pushed open the door quietly and saw Micah sleeping peacefully, his small chest rising and falling beneath a tangle of wires and soft white blankets. Machines hummed like gentle guardians. Rowan approached the bed and brushed Micah's hair from his forehead, feeling that familiar ache. Love mixed with helplessness. He sat in the chair beside him, leaning his head into his hands. Gratitude warred with suspicion. For a man who had lost so much, trust did not come easily. Why would someone help a stranger like him? Especially this much? People had their own battles, their own debts, their own families to care for. He had learned not to expect anything from anyone. Later that day, Rowan stepped outside to breathe. The hospital courtyard brought faint echoes of laughter from families passing by, wheelchairs rolling, nurses chatting softly. And that was when he noticed her, across the courtyard, standing near a line of blooming ivory roses. A gracefully dressed blonde woman, elegant but quiet in her demeanor, with a soft beige gown that somehow seemed out of place in the harshness of a hospital environment. She wasn't looking at him. In fact, she seemed lost in thought, almost fragile behind the poised expression she wore. Rowan didn't think much of it. People visited hospitals for their own reasons: grief, love, fear. Everyone had a story, and he assumed she had hers. He returned to Micah. The next day came another shock. "Your second-stage medication has also been covered," a nurse said. Rowan felt the ground tilt again beneath him. That wasn't a small amount. That wasn't something people did casually. He didn't know whether to feel relieved or terrified. Days passed, and Micah slowly showed signs of improvement. His cheeks flushed with more color. His eyes sparkled again when Rowan read to him from his favorite adventure book. He laughed at silly jokes, squeezed Rowan's hand tighter, and kept asking, "Dad, when can we go home?" Every time he asked, Rowan's throat tightened. Soon, he hoped. Soon. But the donations didn't stop. Every major cost, paid. Every new test, covered. Every expensive treatment round, taken care of. Rowan insisted on knowing who the donor was, desperate to thank them, desperate to understand why someone cared so much about a boy they'd never met. But every time, the answer was the same. Anonymous. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hospital, painting the sky in muted gold, Rowan stepped into the lobby for a cup of the bitter coffee he'd practically lived on. And there she was again, the quiet woman from the courtyard. This time she was leaving the reception desk, her face pale, her eyes glistening with unspoken sorrow. Their eyes met for a brief second, and something in her gaze made Rowan freeze. Not recognition, something deeper. Something like empathy. She gave a small, polite nod before walking past him, her heels clicking softly like fading heartbeats. Rowan watched her go with an inexplicable feeling tightening his chest. The next morning, Micah's doctor walked in smiling. He's responding miraculously. If things continue like this, he can go home in a week. Rowan leaned back, overwhelmed, tears slipping down his face before he could stop them. Relief washed over him like warmth after a long winter, but the mystery ate at him. That afternoon, Rowan followed a hunch. He approached the receptionist and said, "I don't need the name. Is the donor someone connected to the hospital? Someone who's seen us? Someone who knows us?" Dr. Ward hesitated, then offered a soft smile. Sometimes help comes from people who understand pain more than they show. That wasn't an answer. Not really. But somehow it was. Later, Rowan found himself in the same courtyard again. And she was there, sitting alone on the bench by the roses as if waiting for memories to settle beside her. He hesitated, nervous, unsure whether to interrupt. But something pushed him forward that he approached slowly. "Hi," he said gently. She looked up, startled. Up close, her eyes were hauntingly beautiful but heavy with grief. She looked like someone who had once smiled often but hadn't in a long time. She nodded politely. "Hello, my name is Rowan," he said. "My son is in the children's ward. He's getting better." "That's wonderful." She smiled, but it was soft, fragile, as if the smile itself might shatter. He sat down on the far side of the bench, leaving respectful space. "I've seen you a few times. I just wanted to say, if you're visiting someone, I hope they're doing okay." Her fingers tightened around the fabric of her dress. Her voice trembled. "I'm not visiting anyone anymore." Rowan fell silent. She continued quietly, eyes fixed on the roses. "My daughter was treated here. Same floor as your son. Same wing. She didn't make it. She was 8. Her voice cracked, and Rowan felt his chest twist painfully. Her condition was also treatable. But I didn't find out in time. I didn't reach her in time. I was away for work, traveling. I thought we had more days. More weeks. But life doesn't always warn you before it takes something precious." Rowan swallowed, emotion burning through him. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. She wiped a tear, breathing shakily. "When I saw your little boy, when I saw you fighting alone, I couldn't let another parent lose their child because of money, or time, or anything that shouldn't cost a life." Rowan froze, his heart raced. Could it be? Her eyes lifted to his. "Your son reminds me of what I lost." Helping him felt like honoring her. "I didn't want you to know. I didn't want thanks. I just wanted him to live." Rowan's breath caught, and before he could stop them, tears streamed down his face. He covered his eyes with one hand, overwhelmed. She reached out, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "You don't owe me anything. Just love him. Love him fiercely. That's all any child truly needs." Rowan looked at her through blurred vision. "You saved him. You don't even know us, but you saved him." She shook her head softly. "No, he saved me a little." They sat there together in silence, two strangers bound by grief, hope, and the fragile beauty of second chances. That a week later, Micah was discharged. Rowan held his son close as they stepped into the bright daylight outside the hospital, the world suddenly feeling bigger, kinder, softer. He turned once more toward the entrance, half expecting to see the quiet woman watching from afar. She wasn't there, but somehow, her presence lingered like a warm breeze. If this story warmed your heart even a little, please like, share, and subscribe to Bright Hearts. Your support keeps these emotional stories alive. Before the ending, please comment below. Kindness still exists. Rowan walked toward the parking lot with Micah's small hand gripping his. For the first time in a long time, Rowan believed something he thought he had lost forever. That even in the hardest chapters of life, there are people, silent, brave, unseen, who shine light on others simply because pain taught them how dark the world can be. And because of one quiet donor, a single dad's heartbreak became hope again.